do over. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Finance and Risk Management Committee meeting to order for January 16, 2025. Please call the roll.
Director Yamani?
Here? Oh, sorry. Here.
Madam Chair Deacon?
Here.
No call.
Great. Next, I'd like to invite everyone to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to ask if there are any items to be added, withdrawn, or reordered in the agenda.
Or none, Madam Chair.
Seeing none. Do we have any public comments? No. Great. So then next, we're going to consider consent calendar items 1 and 2. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Madam Chair.
I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
You to ask for a public comment.
Oh, that's right. Public comment. Do we have any public comment for consent calendar?
There are no public comments.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve consent calendar items 1 and 2. Is there a motion?
I move to approve consent item 1 and 2. That's my motion.
Thank you. I'll second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Next, we're going to go to item number 3. Approve a contract with Maher Accountancy for general accounting professional services in an amount not to exceed $1,131,000 from February 1st, 2025 through January 31st, 2027, and for 2 optional 1-year extensions in an amount not to exceed $377,000 each respective year, and authorize the Chief Executive Officer to execute the contract. And joining us to present is Dr. Eric Washington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Dr. Eric Washington, Chief Financial Officer at San Diego Community Power. I'll be presenting this item seeking approval from the committee to advance this item to the board with a recommendation for approval by the board. This contract is to continue our accounting services with the Maher Group. Just by way of background, Maher Accountancy has been providing accounting services to San Diego Community Power pretty much from its inception. So in an effort to comply with our procurement policy, we issued a request for proposals for accounting services. In November, that proposal period closed in December, where the deadline for the proposals were due. Those proposals were evaluated and the decision was made to select Maher Accountancy as our accounting services provider. Maher has pretty much provided accounting services to public entities, more specifically California Community Choice Aggregators, or CCAs. So they're really knowledgeable with operating and the financial reporting for CCAs. So we selected them for this, the services for our community power. So again, the contract will run for an initial period of 3 years with 2 renewal or 2 extension options. As pointed out, the scope of work has been aligned with the growth and the development of community power. So this contract will make sure that we have the necessary accounting services needed, not only to account on our financials, but also aid in tracking the programs that will be developing and rolling out in the near future. Next slide, please. So this slide is a summary of the terms, restating the not to exceed amount, and really high level the scope of work that will be involved in the contract. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation on this item. Madam Chair, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Do we have any public comments?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Do you have any director comments or questions?
Through the chair, for my briefing yesterday, I think they cut that typo about through January 1st, 2028. So that would be there in my background here. It still carries 2027, so I hope that was corrected.
Yes, thank you, Director Imani. Thanks again for pointing that out. That has been corrected. And so when this item goes before the board, that will be in alignment with the dates to align with the 3-year initial period, as well as the additional 1-year extension option periods. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Washington. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is very comprehensive. That would help our organization with, the heartbeat of the organization really is the accounting department. Thank you. With that said, Madam Chair, if you don't have a comment, I'd like to move to recommend approval to the board for this item.
Wonderful, and thank you for catching that. I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries unanimously. Next, we're going to move on to item number 4, review of treasurer's report for period ending November 30th, 2024.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Next slide, please. So I'm happy to report out the financial results for Community Power through November 30th, 5 months into our fiscal reporting cycle. If I could direct your attention to the table in the upper right-hand portion of the slide, we ended the period with a net position of $58.6 million after reporting $696 million in net revenue, offset by $637 million in expenses. So the net position is a contribution to our reserves year-to-date through this period. When we look at the actual results compared to the budget, you'll note that we ended up with about $23.5 million in net revenue over budget by about 3%. Offsetting that is an over budget of $53.8 million in expenses that sort of took away from what we had budgeted in terms of our net position to the tune of about $20 million. That said, we were still able to make a positive contribution to reserves and land in a positive position in terms of our change in that position. So the graph below that pretty much is a graphic depiction of the year-to-date results, taking a look at our actual results compared to what we budgeted for in terms of net operating revenues, net expenses, and the change in that position. Next slide. This dashboard shows essentially the contribution to reserves that I pointed out. We landed with a total cash position, unrestricted cash, year-to-date to the tune of $417 million. When adding access to the line of credit that we have, we landed with total liquidity year-to-date to the tune of $583 million. When we look at purely at the unrestricted cash compared to our target of $556 million, we fell about 25% short of that target based on unrestricted cash. And we ended the period with outstanding debt to the tune of $47 million. Next slide, please. In taking a look at our reserve bill graphically over the past 12 months, you'll see where we landed 135 days cash on hand. But when you add in the access to the line of credit, that equated to 201 days cash on hand. So I want to just direct attention to the cash on hand based on unrestricted cash and how that overlays with our target. Our target is 180 days cash on hand. So we're getting closer. We've made some progress, but we're not quite there yet. So hats off to our leadership team, the support of our board, the finance team, and other departments within the organization that's contributed to our ability to reach the level of reserves that we currently have. Next slide, please. This next slide is a depiction of participation in our clean energy programs across our jurisdictions, and we continue to hold steady at about 95, 96% participation rate. Next slide. That concludes my presentation. Madam Chair, I will turn it back over.
Thank you, Dr. Washington. Do we have any public comments on this item?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Any director?
For
colleagues,
the
or-
chair, can we go back to the last slide, Dr. Washington, please? The participation for the members. So, is there any showing that the rating of participation went down?
For the most part, the rates have held fairly steady. So typically, the opt-outs usually occur, as I understand it, shortly after a jurisdiction is enrolled into the program. So since then, they've held relatively steady. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. And who holds our line of credit?
Our line of credit is currently held at JP Morgan Chase Bank.
I see. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Dr. Washington, are we on track to reach our 180 days of cash on hand liquidity? And
So-
so when is the expected date?
So we're actually, that's a great question, Madam Chair. We're actually in what we refer to as rate setting season. We've taken some preliminary looks and modeling and projections around that. So we don't have a definitive timeline for that, but I will say we're pretty confident that we'll reach it sometime in 2025. But there's a lot of variables associated with that. But I think we're continuing to track well to reach that target. Thank you for the question.
Great, thank you. Thank you for all your work on that and the team's work. Okay, well, this is receive and file. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. We're gonna receive and file. We're gonna move on now to item number 5, update on 2025 projected rate changes. And we have Lucas Ito, Senior Director of Data Analytics and Customer Operations, will give the presentation.
Good afternoon. My name is Aaron. I'm the Rates and Strategy Manager at Community Power.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Lucas Uto. I'm the Senior Director of Data Analytics and Customer Operations.
I'm here to present an update to our rate setting process for 2025 and to continue the conversation in terms of what we've been talking about today. So really the focus here today is on the rates timeline. It's thing we want to call out that's changed last week. Presented this item to the Committee Advisory Board as well as to the Board of Directors in December before the holidays. So in terms of where we are today and what's changed since then is SDG, San Diego Gas and Electric, did file for an extension to delay implementation of their 2025 rates from January 1st to February 1st of 2025, as well as to delay the filing of their consolidated rate advice letters. Those requests have been granted by the Public Utilities Commission back in December during the holidays, and the reasons for granting the extensions is to avoid rate volatility as well as more than one or more frequent rate changes than there needs to be. Therefore, Community Power is pushing back, bringing our proposal to the board in January this year to first week of February in order to adopt 2025 rates. So that's kind of the change that I want to highlight today. And when we bring proposed rates to the board in the first week of February, those new rates would be proposed to be retroactively effective starting on February 1st, 2020. Next slide, please. In terms of our rate setting process overview, we have our rate development policy objectives. We strive to balance all of these objectives during our rate setting process, during our analysis, as well as putting these proposals in front of the board. So of course, those includes cost recovery, maintaining our reserves, getting closer to our reserve targets. We want to provide customer value in terms of run rate competitiveness, stability, transparency, making rates as easy to understand as possible for our customers, as well as maintaining equity. Next slide, please. Just as a refresher to what are the components of Community Power's rates. The rates are really made up of generation costs. Those are costs to procure power. We also have SDGs delivery costs. And the additional fees include the power charge indifference adjustment, which is above market costs related to procurement commitments that the utilities, so gas and electric, and all the other investor-owned utilities in California made years ago before community choice aggregators were formed and before customers enrolled with the CCAs. And then there's also the franchise fee, which is a third charge applied to the use of the public right-of-way. So all customers, both bundled, both with San Diego Gas and Electric and unbundled with the CCAs, are assessed franchise. Next slide, please. So in terms of equity, we want to make sure that we are providing equity to our customers in the way that it recognizes that each person has different circumstances, and we are allocating the exact resource opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. And what that means specifically in terms of rate setting is, next slide, please. Because of the PCIA is tracked to different vintages or years when those procurement costs were committed, that's why Community Power's customers have associated vintages in terms of either vintage 2020, 21, or 2022, depending when they enrolled into Community Power service. And in order to provide the same value for our customers or the discount for our customers, we have to try to create our rates or create 3 sets of rates because of those 3 different vintages to ensure that even mathematically that all customers are provided the same discount. Next slide, please. The 2025 commodity rate projections from San Diego Gas and Electric, now effective February 1st, 2025. These haven't changed since last time we presented to them. These are citations from the November or the latest San Diego Gas and Electric filing. Their next expected filing is going to be on January 31st, 2025. And once those numbers are out, staff will analyze proposed set of rates from those values. And just to highlight the green on the right of this table, system total is that SDGs commodity rates are projected to increase by 6.2% from their current effective rates to their new proposed rates. Next slide, please. So in terms of next steps, and to summarize, staff continues to monitor any updates from San Diego Gas and Electric with a special attention to their consolidated rate filing end of January, as well as if there are any additional changes coming from the commission in early 2025. San Diego Gas and Electric's new rates, commodity, as well as their delivery rates, and the new PCIA update will go into effect on February 1st, 2025, but again, they won't be finalized until the last week of January. So Community Power will recommend to the board to adopt a rate change on February 7th for those rates to be retroactively effective on February 1st. And just some key considerations are the final values and final information has not been released, so everything is subject to change. And to maintain equity, again, staff will be presenting and recommending 3 sets of rates for us. That concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Do we have any public comments on item number 5?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any board,
Madam Chair, just comment for the vintages. 2020, those are the 3 different vintages that you said. How will our ratepayers, they get impacted by that? How?
Our customers are assigned vintages depending on when they enroll into our service. So
Thank
each
you.
customer already
Thank
has.
you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Got it. Thank you.
seeing no additional comments, this is a receive and file as well. It'll be very interesting at our next meeting to hear the entire board's discussion. So we're gonna move on to no further items other than adjournment. Do we have any last member communications or comments?
Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy New Year. Well, thank you, everybody. This meeting is adjourned.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.